Hey, what's going on, guys? Julio here, and in today's video, we will continue working on part 2 of the Travelex website. If you're just watching this video for the first time, I recommend that you go and watch part 1 first, because there you will find everything you need to follow along with this project. I'll be sure to place a link to part 1 in the description as well as in the comment section. Before we get started, I just wanted to ask you that if you're new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell icon. This way you'll never miss one of my videos. Be sure to give it a like, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Now, let's jump right into the tutorial. So in the last video tutorial, we finished working on the header as well as the navigation. For this video, we will work on the hero section as well as the other sections. So let's start by scrolling down, and then here under the closing tag for the header, we will open up the main tag. Inside of here, what we will do is open up a div with the class of hero. Then inside of it, we will have the container div once more to keep the overall width consistent. And then inside of it, I'm going to have a div with the class of main heading. Then inside of it, I'm going to have an h1 with the class of title. And it's just going to say discover. Then underneath it, I'm going to have an h2 with the class of subtitle. And this will simply just say luxury hotels. Then underneath of the main heading div, what I want to do is have an anchor tag with two classes. The first one is going to be BTN, which will be general styles for all the buttons, and then the second one will be a secondary style. So this one will be BTN-gradient. Then this will not point anywhere, so I'll just use a hash, and then it will say explore now. Now, still within the anchor tag, I want to have a span with the class of dots. And then inside of here, I'm going to be placing a font awesome icon so that we can have the dots next to the Explore Now button. So the icon will have the following classes, so FAS, and then the secondary class is going to be FA ellipses, and then -h. And as you can see here, we now have the dots. And this is going to be all the HTML markup for the hero section. What we will do now is go inside of the style sheet so that we can style the hero and make it look all pretty. So join me there. So now that we are inside of the style sheet, what we will do is scroll all the way down. Then we'll create another comment reference, and this one will be for the hero section styles. Now I'm going to select the hero. Then I'll give it a width of 100% as well as a height. The height will be 100 of the BH. This way is going to take all the available space here we have on the viewport. Now I'll use the shorthand for the background property, and I'm going to go inside of the images folder, and I'm going to grab the hero background image. The position will be in the center, and then the background repeat will be set to no repeat. The background size will be set to cover. And that gets us the image. What I want to do next is align all of this text here in the middle. So for that, we can just use Flexbox. Then we just do align item center and justify content to the center as well. But notice that the text itself is not being centered, but that's because it's only centering the container. So what we can do instead is just say that the text align here is going to be a center. And this works just because we only have a little bit of text and a button. If you had a lot more content, then obviously you wouldn't do it this way, because unless you wanted all your text to be centered, because like I said, all the text inside of the hero will be text align centered. So that's something to keep in mind. And since the container is actually basically taking 100%, we don't actually need this justify content center. So we can get rid of it. The only one we need is the inline items of center. The next step that we need to take is give this a position of relative. And that's because we will be using this before pseudo element to create an overlay on this image. So let's take care of that right now. We'll select the hero again, and then we'll say before. Let's now forget to set the content property, because if we don't set it, then it's not going to show up. Now the position will be set to absolute. Starting top position will be 0, as well as the left. Then I'm going to give it a background color, which will be the variable for the transparent alternate. And something that we have to do is actually give this a width and a height. So for that, we can just do a width of inherit and a height of inherit as well. So it will basically inherit the width and height of the parent, which is this hero section right here. So it's going to take 100% of the width and 100 of the BH for the height. And just like so, you can see that the overlay is on top of the image. But we have a small problem. The overlay is actually on top of the text as well, which is not what we want. But we can easily fix that with CIndex. We're just going to set it to -1. And if you notice, that also creates another small problem. Now this hero before is actually behind its parent. So how can we fix that? Well, we can go back to the hero, and here we can specify a CIndex. And if you specify a CIndex on the parent, then the child is not going to fall behind it. So for that, we can just simply do 0. And just like so, now the text is on top of the overlay, which is exactly what we want. Although it's not really that visible because of the color, but we'll be taking care of that right now. Let's select the main heading. And here we'll just apply some general styles for the heading inside of it. And first one is going to be the color, which we will set to white. Then we will set the line height so that we can get them to be closer together. And it's going to be 1, just like so. Then what I'll do is apply a text shadow just so that it looks better. And that's just going to be 1 pixel here, 1 rem, and then an RGBA of black, which is 000, and then 0.5 for the alpha. I'm also going to be applying a little bit of margin here to create some separation between the text, the heading text here, and the button. So the margin bottom is going to be something like 2.5 rem. And that's going to give us some nice separation between the heading and the button. Now let's go ahead and style the headings themselves. So I'm going to select the title. Then what I'll do here is say that the font size is going to be 4.8 rem. What I'll do next is say that the text transform will also be of uppercase. Then finally, I will say that the letter spacing will be something like 3 pixels. Now I'm going to select the subtitle. And here I also want to increase the font size. This one will be 3.6 rem. Should be 3.6, not 0.36. And I also want to make this heading lighter, so I'm going to set a font weight of 300 pixels. Not 300 pixels, but just 300. Something else that I want to do is modify the font family. So font family. And for this, we'll just use Courgette, which is the one that we brought in through Google Fonts. And then the fallback will just be cursive. And now we get the font that we want. The next step now is to style the button we have right here. So let's do that. Let's just say BTN. Remember that we will reuse the BTN class throughout the website. So here we just want to apply some general styles to all of the buttons. So the color is going to be of white. The font size will be something like 1.3 rem. Then I'm going to say that the font weight will be bold. Text transform will also be of uppercase. And then I'm going to give it some padding top and bottom. Top will be 0.5 rem. And then left and right will be 3.5 rem. The next thing I want to do is get rid of the border. Obviously, the anchor tags don't really have a border, but later on for the form, we will be using the button tag, and that's going to have a border on it. So we want to get rid of it. I'm also going to give it a border radius of something small, probably like 10 rem, which is actually not that small. That's 100 pixels right there. And it's just going to give us some nice rounded corners. Obviously, right now you can't see it because it doesn't have a background yet. Then I'm going to give this a display of inline flex. And the reason for that is because here the dots are perfectly aligned, but the moment that I start styling them, increasing the size, then it's not going to look right. So actually, before I apply those styles, let me actually show you what I mean after I apply the background color. So for that, what I can do is say that the BTN gradient is going to have the following colors. For that, we can just use the gradient variable. Remember, to use a gradient, you can either use the background short property, the shorthand background property, or you use the background image. Because if you just do background color, gradients will not work. And just like so, here we have the background color. Now I'm going to create a hover effect for it. So let me just actually rev this, since it's going to be essentially the same. And I'll say on hover. And then this one will be alt. And just like so, now when I hover over it, you'll see that the colors are switched over. Now I'm going to style the dots inside of this button right here. So you'll see exactly what I mean. So dots. And I'll say that the font size is going to be 2.4 rem. And just like so, you see that now that I increased the font size, the dots are not lining up. So what I also want to do is actually move this over a little bit to the right. So we're just going to apply a margin left of something like 0.5 rem. And I'm also going to target the opacity and make it a little bit transparent. So remember I mentioned display of inline flex on the button. This way we can use the flexbox properties. So we'll just do display inline flex. And now here we can just simply say align items to the center. And just like so, it is perfectly aligned in the middle. Since the BTN class right here is going to be something we can reuse over and over, let's just copy it and get rid of it from here. Let's go back up to the comment we created for the reusable ones, and that's just going to make it a lot easier for us to follow along. And actually, I forgot that for this project, I deleted the previous one, so I had to start over. Let me actually make another note of that. So reusable, styles, I actually misspelled this. And here we will paste down the code for the BTN, and let's also grab the container. But if you already followed along from the previous video, you probably don't have to do this. The only reason why I'm doing it is because I had to delete everything and start over. So now that we have that taken care of, the next step will be working on the other section where we have the form for the booking information and basically just doing the search. So join me for the next step inside of the index.html. So now that we are back inside of the index.html, the next step will be to go here underneath of the hero div, and we will use the section tag and we will apply the class of booking to it. Then we want to reuse the container, and inside of it we will have a form. So the form will also have the class of form. And the action can be left empty because this form is not really going to be submitted. Now I'm going to have a div with the class of input group. And in here, I'm going to have a label. The label is going to have the class of input label. And as far as for the for, this will be the ID that we will use in the input to match with this label. So this one will be for destination. And then here for the text, we can do the same. Now underneath, we will have an input with the class of input. And then we will also apply an ID to match up with this label as mentioned, which is going to be this destination right here. So let's do that, and then we just simply hit tab. Now that we have the label in the input, we will simply just create another input group. Since it will be exactly the same, we can just go ahead, copy it, and paste it down below. And let me just actually scroll the browser a little bit so that we can see it. Now we just have to change the for to check in. And then this text is simply just going to say check in. And then for the ID, we can just change it to check in. We're going to have one more input right here. So this one will be for checkout. So let's just copy this again, paste it down below. And this way we can save a lot of time, since it's exactly the same code, so you don't really want to be copying everything from scratch. So let's just slightly modify this check-in, and it's going to be checkout instead. And then we can do the same for this ID as well as the text. So what we have to do now is actually use the drop down. So that's going to be pretty simple as well. Before we continue, actually, let me just add another attribute, because this one is not going to be of text. It will actually be a date, and the same thing for the checkout. So now you see that we get a drop down right here for the date with the calendar and so on. So going back to what I was saying, we will have another div, this time again with the input group class. And inside of it, we will have a label. So let me actually just copy it right here. And the label will be for, and I believe this was for adults. And then the class is still going to be for the input label. And then this can just say adults. Then underneath, what I want to do is say that I want a select, and it will have the class of options. And then it will also have the ID of adults, just like so. So now that we have the, and it should actually be select, not select, just like so. So now that we have that, we just need the options. So here we can just say option, and then for the value here we can just have 0, which means that 0 it's what's going to show up by default. Well, the value of it, if you were actually to make this form functional, will be set automatically to 0. And then for the text inside of it, it can just actually should be 0, not 1. And then we can just basically replicate this a few more times. I believe we had 5, so let's just do that 5 more times. And now we can just simply change the number we have here. Just like so. So the other one is going to be exactly the same, but it will be for children. So since we already did this one, all we can do is just copy this input group right here for the select. We'll copy it, paste it down below. And now we'll change the for to children. And then here the ID, we will also change it to children so that it matches up with the label. Let's also not forget to change the text. And that's going to be all for the select. Now we just have to work on the button. So the button will go right here underneath of the last input group, and we will have a button, and it will be it will have the class of btn. It will also have another class of form btn, and it will also have that another class for a different color that is different from this one, which is going to be a purple. So let me actually just call it btn purple. And that right there, it's just going to generate 3 classes as shown right here. Inside of the button, what I want to do is do the exact same thing I did before for my anchor tag. So I'm going to have a span with the class of dots. And then inside of it, I'm going to have the I tag, and it's going to have the font awesome classes of FAS, FA, ellipses, and then -H. And just like so, although it's barely visible, we have the dots right here. So as far as the text, we'll just simply say search. Just like so. Since this is a form, we can also add the attribute of type of submit. And that's going to be it for this booking section right here. The next step will be going inside of the style sheet so that we can make it look a lot better. So join me there. Now that we're back inside of the style sheet, make sure you scroll down all the way to the bottom if you already haven't. And just like we did before, let's create another reference comment. This one will be for the booking section styles. And the first thing that I want to do here is just apply a gradient background color to this booking section. So let's select the booking section. And again, we'll just use the background image here, and then followed by the variable, and then this one will be for the gradient, just like the regular one. And just like so, that's going to give us the gradient background. Now we just simply have to select the input group, and then I'm just going to give it a margin bottom to create some separation between all of the inputs. And for that, we can just do 1.5 rem, just like so. Then what I'll do here is say that I want to select the labels. So input label, and I'm going to give this a display of block, and what that's going to do is just make it so that the label itself will take 100% of the available space, and then this input right here is just going to fall down on the next line. Just like so. And then once we take that, we do that, I'll just apply a font size of 1.3 rem. The text transform will be set to uppercase. Then the color is going to be of white, and the font weight is going to be bold. Just like so. I also want to apply a little bit more separation between the label and the input itself. So for that, I'll just do another margin bottom, and this time I'll do something like 1 rem. Just like so. Now underneath of this rule, I'm going to select the input as well as the options. So input, and then the options. And I want them to share these styles right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the outline that they have. As you can see here, it just gets like this blue outline thing. So let's get rid of that by saying that the outline will be set to none. And now if we go back and focus in, you'll see that there is no outline. Now what I'll do is get rid of the border as well by setting it to none. The width is going to be set to 100% because I want it to expand. Then I'm going to say that the min height is going to be 4 rem. So this way it will always be 4 rem at a minimum. It won't be any smaller than that. The next step is going to give it some padding all around so that we can get some separation here between this. So let's give it a padding of something like 1 rem, just like so. Then I'm going to say that the font weight is also going to be bold. And then I'm going to set a color of a dark gray. So for this one, I'm going to say that the color is going to be A5, A5, A5. Then I'm going to also apply a letter spacing of 2 pixels. And then for the font family, we'll just use the open sans as well. And then with a sans serif fallback. Finally, I'm going to set it to a resize of none. And the reason why I'm doing this right now is because later on when we do the contact form, we will have this right here. We will have it so that with this set to none, we're not going to be able to resize the text area for the message. So that's the only reason why I'm doing it right now, as opposed to leaving it out for later. But anyways, just to give you guys a reminder as to why I'm doing this, what I'll do is just comment this out, and then later on when we get to the form for the contact form, we'll just come back to it to and then comment this just to remind you why I'm doing this. Then I'm going to say that I also want to style the placeholder. Again, that's something that we will be using for the contact form. So I guess we will actually just wait till we get there, as opposed to doing it right now. So let's just leave that for later. What I'll do here instead is just style this button we have right now. So that's going to be pretty simple as well. BTN form. BTN form. Actually, it was form BTN. And I'm going to give this a margin top to create some additional separation. Now I'll do 2.5 rem. Then I'm going to say that the cursor will be a pointer. And then I'm going to say that actually, that's it for now. And what I'll say now is say that the BTN purple, which is the modifier that we added, will have a background color of the light purple that we had before, which is not light, but the solid purple. So for that, we'll just use the variable purple solid right here, and then we'll just create a hover effect for it. So what we can do here is like BTN purple again, and then we'll say unhover. What I wanted to happen is just simply again change the color. And for that, let's just use the other variable of purple light. And now if we go ahead and hover over it, you see that we get the desired effect. Although I think that's slightly way too late, so let me actually go ahead and grab a lighter shade, slightly lighter shade of this purple. So let me actually just delete this. And let me see which one I used on my reference. So it was the following hex right here, which is 56247F. So now if we try that, you see that it's not as bright. So that's actually perfect. And that's going to be all that we need for this particular section right here. But as I mentioned, this form BTN class is something that we will also reuse later on for the contact form. So let's just copy it, delete it from here, and then we are just going to scroll all the way back up to the reusable styles, and then we'll just paste it right here. This way, if you need to change something, you can easily find everything together where it is.